The conference hall was a study in controlled tension. Polished obsidian walls reflected the holographic displays that tracked the approaching Zorn fleet, a massive armada that dwarfed anything humanity had ever conceived. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of the room, her posture rigid, her dark eyes reflecting years of preparation. Around her, the most brilliant minds of Earth gathered in what looked like a typical diplomatic meeting. But nothing about this moment was typical. Each person in the room carried a secret, a genetic legacy that had been carefully cultivated for generations. Hidden within their DNA were neural interfaces, quantum communication pathways, and genetic memories that would activate at the precise moment of greatest need. The Zorn delegation entered, their crystalline exoskeletons catching the soft light of the chamber. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, they moved with a predatory grace that spoke of centuries of interstellar conquest. Their lead diplomat, Ambassador Krestak, projected an aura of absolute superiority. His multifaceted eyes scanned the human representatives with what could only be described as clinical disdain. Humanity. Krestak's translation device produced a voice that was simultaneously mechanical and condescending. Your species has reached its moment of reckoning. The Zorn Collective demands immediate surrender of all planetary resources, technological archives, and complete submission to our galactic governance. Elena's right hand, seemingly resting casually on the conference table, was actually triggering a series of microscopic quantum relays embedded in her skin. Around the world, systems that had been dormant for centuries began to pulse with anticipatory energy. The room remained silent. No panic, no fear, just a collective sense of something ancient and powerful stirring beneath the surface. Colonel Marcus Yamamoto, head of Earth's defensive coordination, spoke first. His voice was calm, almost conversational. And if we refuse? Krestak's crystalline form seemed to shimmer with barely contained amusement. Refusal means total extinction. Your planetary defenses are obsolete. Your technological capabilities are primitive. The Zorn Collective has conquered civilizations far more advanced than yours in mere solar cycles. A subtle smile played across Elena's lips. If only they knew. The genetic memories began to stir, deep within the DNA of every human in the room. Dormant neural pathways started to activate. Centuries of hidden knowledge, of strategic preparation, of a plan so complex it had been hidden in plain sight, began to awaken. What the Zorn did not understand was that humanity's strength was never about the technology they displayed. It was about the technology they had carefully, meticulously hidden. Elena's neural implant began to warm slightly, a signal that the first phase of their millennia-long plan was about to commence. The Warships, older than any existing galactic civilization, waited in their quantum-locked stasis fields. Memories of a civilization that had chosen strategic hibernation over extinction were about to be unleashed. Your ultimatum is noted, Elena responded, her voice steady. But I'm afraid you've fundamentally misunderstood something about humanity. Krestak tilted his crystalline head, a gesture of momentary confusion. And what might that be? He asked. Elena's smile grew slightly wider. We've been waiting for this moment for a very long time. Outside the conference hall, across the solar system, the first quantum resonance signals began to pulse. Something ancient was about to awaken, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The silence before the storm was about to be shattered. The Atacama Desert Research Facility looked like nothing more than a standard geological research station from the outside. Buried 3 kilometers beneath the arid landscape, Captain Michael Chen navigated through a labyrinth of quantum-shielded corridors that defied conventional understanding of engineering and physics. His gloved hand traced the surface of a data crystal no larger than his thumbnail, a repository of memories older than human civilization itself. Each microscopic lattice contained petabytes of compressed information, quantum-locked memories that had waited generations to be unleashed. Dr. Vasquez, Michael called to his lead researcher, run the quantum decryption sequence again. Something's different this time. Dr. Sofia Vasquez, a geneticist with 2 decades of classified research behind her, adjusted the holographic interfaces surrounding the artifact. Her fingers moved with a precision that suggested she was as much a part of the machine as the technology itself. The room itself was a marvel of hidden engineering. Walls composed of metamaterials that could shift molecular structure at will, floors embedded with quantum communication networks that could transmit information faster than light. This was more than a research facility. It was a time capsule of humanity's most profound secret. The genetic markers are aligning, Sophia murmured, her voice a mixture of excitement and disbelief. These aren't just technological artifacts. They're memory cores, living records of an entire civilization's consciousness. Michael understood the implications immediately. The warships they had discovered were not simply machines of war. They were vessels of memory, of purpose, of a plan so intricate that it had been woven into the very genetic code of humanity itself. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing fragmented images that defied conventional understanding. Civilizations rising and falling. Technological marvels that made current human technology look like primitive stone tools. And beneath it all, a consistent thread. A civilization that had chosen strategic hibernation over total extinction. "We are not their descendants," Michael whispered, a revelation he had suspected for years, but now knew with absolute certainty. "We are their continuation." The quantum pulse rippled through the facility. The data crystals began to resonate, each one vibrating with a frequency that seemed to bypass traditional sensory perception. Genetic memories long dormant began to stir in the research team's DNA. Dr. Vasquez's hand trembled. "The activation sequence is accelerating. Whatever was waiting, whatever plan was set in motion generations ago, it's happening now." Michael studied the holographic reconstruction of an ancient warship. Its design was both familiar and utterly alien. Curves that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions, materials that could transform and adapt at the molecular level. These were not just ships. They were living systems with a consciousness that had been carefully preserved. "The Zorn think we're a young species," Michael said, a grim smile playing on his lips. "They have no idea we're the continuation of a civilization that has been planning this moment for millennia." The quantum data crystals pulsed again. Fragments of memories began to coalesce, glimpses of star systems consumed by warfare, of a civilization that chose to hibernate rather than face total annihilation. They had encoded their entire existence into a plan so complex, so patient, that it would make the longest-term strategic thinking look like a child's game. "Prepare the neural interface," Michael commanded. "It's time to wake up the first of the warships." Outside the facility, the Atacama Desert remained unchanged. But deep beneath the surface, the first threads of a millennia-long plan were beginning to unravel. Humanity was about to reveal that they were far more than anyone could have imagined. The first Zorn bombardment was supposed to be a demonstration of overwhelming force. Massive energy weapons carved through Earth's initial defense grid, leaving trails of molten atmosphere and shattered satellite networks. Admiral Krellinks, commanding the invasion fleet, watched with clinical detachment as what he believed would be humanity's final moments unfolded. Lieutenant Commander Aria Chen, Michael Chen's younger sister, sat in the quantum neural interface chamber of the lead hidden warship. Her consciousness wasn't just controlling the vessel. She was becoming one with it. Millions of microscopic neural connectors integrated with the ship's living systems, transforming her into something beyond human, beyond machine. "Activation sequence initiated," her communication officer whispered, though no sound actually passed between them. Their thoughts merged, a complex symphony of quantum-entangled consciousness. From the dark side of the moon, from the crushing pressures of Jupiter's orbit, from caverns deep within Mars, the warships began to emerge. They didn't simply appear, they sang. A quantum harmonic resonance that could shatter matter, rebuild reality, and communicate volumes in a single pulse of energy. The ships were alive in a way no traditional spacecraft could ever be, biological technological hybrids that defied every known principle of engineering and consciousness. The Zorn fleet's sensors went haywire. What had seemed like a simple extermination mission became something entirely incomprehensible. The first warship to fully materialize was a marvel of impossible geometry. Its hull seemed to exist in multiple dimensions, simultaneously, shifting and adapting with each millisecond of approach. Admiral Krellink's tactical display erupted in a cascade of impossible data. Ships that shouldn't exist were matching and exceeding every weapon system in the Zorn arsenal. Energy weapons that could obliterate planetary crusts were absorbed, transformed, redirected with casual precision. Impossible, Krellink muttered, his multifaceted crystalline eyes struggling to process what was happening. Area Chen's merged consciousness reached out, and the warship responded. Not with traditional weapons, but with a quantum communication pulse that was simultaneously a weapon, a message, and a fundamental restructuring of physical reality. The first Zorn battlecruiser simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, not blown apart, but completely removed from the fabric of space-time. One moment it was there, a kilometer-long monument to alien technological might. The next, it was as if it had never existed. First wave neutralized. Aria's voice echoed through quantum communication channels. Preparing secondary resonance sequence. Thousands of kilometers away, in the Atacama Desert Research Facility, Michael Chen watched the initial engagement with a mixture of pride and profound understanding. This was more than a battle. This was the culmination of a plan generations in the making. The warships didn't just move. They danced. Each vessel integrated with the others in a complex choreography that suggested a collective consciousness far beyond individual ship capabilities. They were transforming the very nature of space combat, rendering the Zorn's most sophisticated technologies into nothing more than primitive relics. They never understood. Michael whispered to himself, watching the holographic displays, that we were never the species they thought we were. The quantum harmonic continued, a song of destruction, of revelation, of a civilization awakening from the longest of strategic hibernations. The Zorn invasion fleet was about to learn a fundamental truth about humanity. This was not a fight for survival. This was a message, and the galaxy was about to listen. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in the primary control nexus, her consciousness spread across multiple quantum interfaces simultaneously. The human neural network was revealing itself to be something far beyond any technological system the galaxy had ever encountered. Each warship was more than a weapon. It was a living, breathing ecosystem of intelligence. Biomechanical cores pulsed with a consciousness that merged human potential with technologies that seemed to defy the fundamental laws of physics. The neural interfaces were not mere connections. They were quantum entanglement made manifest, allowing a single human pilot to control entire fleets with nothing more than thought. Adaptive resonance at 98.7%, whispered Dr. Marcus Yamamoto, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that seemed to breathe and shift with each touch. The ships are no longer just responding. They're anticipating. The technological singularity was not a theoretical concept. It was happening now, in real time, across the solar system and beyond. Weapon systems didn't just fire. They predicted, adapted, and transformed at speeds that made traditional computational models look like ancient abacuses. A Zorn battlecruiser attempting to launch a plasma torpedo would find its own weapon dismantled, restructured, and redirected before the firing sequence could complete. Not through simple electronic countermeasures, but through a fundamental reconstruction of quantum probability. Elena's neural link allowed her to see multiple potential futures simultaneously. Each potential timeline was a thread of possibility, woven and unwoven in milliseconds. The warships were doing more than fighting. They were engaged in a complex dance of quantum manipulation that rewrote the very rules of engagement. "We're not just fighting," Elena murmured, her voice echoing through the quantum communication network. "We're teaching." Deep within the biomechanical cores of the lead warship, genetic memories began to unfold. These were not simply technological systems, but living archives of a civilization that had learned the ultimate lesson of survival. Adaptation is more powerful than destruction. A Zorn communication intercepted by the ship's systems revealed their growing terror. Their most sophisticated weapon systems were being turned into nothing more than primitive toys. Where they saw technology, humanity saw potential. Where they sought to destroy, humanity sought to transform. Dr. Yamamoto's display showed something unprecedented. The warships were not just defending or attacking. They were learning, evolving with each millisecond of engagement. Weapon systems were redesigning themselves in real time, drawing from a collective intelligence that spanned generations of hidden preparation. The neural interface is becoming symbiotic, he reported, a mix of scientific fascination and barely contained excitement in his voice. The line between human and ship is dissolving. Lieutenant Commander Aria Chen, still merged with her vessel, represented the pinnacle of this transformation. Her consciousness expanded beyond physical limitations, perceiving the battlefield as a complex quantum landscape of infinite possibilities. She was simultaneously the pilot, the weapon, and the strategy, a living embodiment of humanity's true potential. The Zorn had believed they were facing a young, technologically inferior species. Instead, they were confronting a civilization that had been preparing for this moment across millennia. Every technological advancement, every seemingly random scientific discovery, had been a carefully placed piece in an incomprehensibly complex plan. Weapon systems are now operating at 300% theoretical maximum efficiency, Elena announced, her voice calm despite the magnitude of what was happening. Quantum entanglement is achieving full synchronization. Outside, the space around the warships began to shimmer, not from weapon discharge, but from the fundamental restructuring of physical reality itself. The ships were no longer simply moving through space. They were rewriting the very rules that govern spatial existence. Humanity's true nature was being revealed, not through violence, but through the most profound demonstration of technological potential the galaxy had ever witnessed. This was more than a battle. This was evolution made manifest. The psychological warfare began not with weapons, but with memories. Dr. Elena Rodriguez understood that true conquest was never about physical destruction. It was about breaking the fundamental understanding of reality itself. As the lead strategist of humanity's quantum communication network, she had developed something far more potent than any conventional weapon, a system that could rewrite the very psychological foundations of an entire species. The first Zorn communication networks fell not to electronic warfare, but to a quantum-entangled memory projection that was simultaneously a weapon, a message, and a profound existential experience. Entire Zorn battleships found themselves trapped in complex neural loops, reliving the most traumatic moments of their species' history with a clarity that shattered their perception of reality. Commander Marcus Takeda watched from the quantum interface chamber as the first wave of psychological attacks unfolded. The holographic displays showed not just tactical information, but intricate quantum threads of consciousness that wrapped around the Zorn fleet like living neural networks. Target's collective memory banks are destabilizing, his neural interface reported. The words appeared directly in his consciousness, a seamless blend of human intuition and technological precision. On one Zorn battlecruiser, the entire crew experienced a collective memory reconstruction. They weren't just remembering their species' most profound defeat, they were reliving it with such intensity that the line between memory and reality completely dissolved. Quantum entanglement allowed humanity to project memories with a fidelity that was indistinguishable from actual experience. Admiral Krelinx, watching from the Zorn command ship, found his most sophisticated defensive systems turned into elaborate psychological traps. Where he expected weapon signatures, he found memories. Where he anticipated electronic countermeasures, he encountered existential revelations that challenged the very foundation of Zorn understanding. Elena's strategy was brutally elegant. Each projected memory was a carefully constructed quantum algorithm, a weapon that attacked not the body, but the very concept of individual and collective consciousness. The Zorn were experiencing their own history with a clarity and emotional intensity that was fundamentally destructive. "We're not just fighting," Elena murmured to her team, We're providing a form of radical empathy that their civilization has never encountered. Some Zorn ships simply ceased functioning, not destroyed, but psychologically paralyzed. Their crews trapped in quantum memory loops that rendered them completely non-operational. It was a form of warfare so advanced, so fundamentally different from anything in galactic history, that it defied traditional understanding of conflict. Commander Takeda watched as entire Zorn communication networks began to fracture. The quantum memory projections were spreading, not like a virus, but like a living, adaptive consciousness that could rewrite psychological landscapes in milliseconds. "We're teaching them something fundamental about themselves," he reported, his voice a mixture of scientific fascination and profound empathy. The most terrifying aspect was the precision. Humanity wasn't indiscriminately attacking. They were surgically dismantling the Zorn's psychological infrastructure with the care of a surgeon and the insight of a therapist. Each memory projection was a lesson, a revelation, a fundamental restructuring of understanding. Entire Zorn fleet divisions found themselves experiencing their species' most profound moments of collective shame, of failed conquests, of civilizational traumas, all with a clarity that made these experiences more real than their current reality. Elena Rodriguez became the unexpected architect of this campaign, a scientist who understood that the most profound weapon was not destruction, but understanding. The quantum communication network was transforming from a tool of war into a medium of radical empathy. "We're not conquering," Elena whispered to herself, watching the holographic displays that showed the Zorn fleet's psychological landscape fragmenting. "We're healing." The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's true strength was never about technological superiority. It was about the depth of their understanding. The Galactic communication hub at Nexus Prime fell silent. Holographic displays across thousands of alien civilizations simultaneously flickered with the same impossible footage. Humanity's true capabilities lay bare in a series of quantum transmissions that defied every known principle of technological and evolutionary understanding. Ambassador Zara Lynn of the Crystalline Concordance watched the transmission with a mixture of terror and profound respect. Her crystalline form, normally a beacon of diplomatic composure, trembled almost imperceptibly. The quantum memory projection from the human fleet had revealed something far more terrifying than military might. It had exposed the fundamental vulnerability of every advanced civilization in the galaxy. "They are not a young species," she whispered to her diplomatic council. "They are a sleeping giant that has been watching, waiting, understanding." The transmission showed more than just technological superiority. It revealed a depth of strategic preparation that made the most advanced galactic civilizations look like children playing with primitive toys. Each quantum communication burst was simultaneously a weapon, a historical archive, and a profound philosophical statement. On the Androndan Consensus Communication Network, entire debate chambers fell into stunned silence. The humans had not just defeated the Zorn Collective, they had fundamentally restructured the understanding of technological and civilizational potential. Admiral Krellinx's final transmission became a haunting artifact of galactic communication. Captured in the quantum memory networks, his last moments were a complex tapestry of realization, not of defeat, but of a profound understanding that challenged everything the Zorn believed about themselves and the universe. Some alien civilizations began immediate diplomatic overtures. The Quantum Diplomacy Division of the Crystalline Concordance drafted communication protocols that approached humanity with a mixture of caution, respect, and barely contained scientific fascination. Others prepared defensive positions. Entire planetary shield systems were recalibrated, technological archives were sealed, and communication networks were reinforced. But everyone understood a fundamental truth. Whatever defensive measures they could conceive, humanity had already anticipated and potentially neutralized. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, watching from the quantum interface chamber, understood the deeper game. This was not about conquest. This was about reshaping the fundamental understanding of potential. "We're not looking to replace their civilizations," she communicated through the quantum network. We're offering them a perspective they've never considered. The most terrifying aspect for the galactic community was not humanity's technological capabilities. It was the profound empathy demonstrated in their approach. Where other civilizations saw conflict as a zero-sum game, humans presented a multidimensional understanding that suggested cooperation was the ultimate evolutionary strategy. The Andromedan consensus communication logs would later describe the human transmission as a quantum philosophical intervention, a moment that fundamentally restructured galactic understanding of technological and civilizational potential. Some civilizations began studying the quantum memory projections with a reverence usually reserved for the most profound spiritual experiences. What humans had done was more than a military victory. It was a comprehensive demonstration of a different approach to existence. Ambassador Zara Lynn completed her initial report with a statement that would be quoted across multiple galactic archives. Humanity is not a species to be conquered or dismissed. They are a living, evolving perspective that challenges everything we understand about potential, consciousness, and collective development. The galaxy held its collective breath. Humanity had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again. The quantum archives of humanity materialized in the heart of the Atacama Desert Research Facility, a living repository of memories older than recorded history. Dr. Michael Chen stood at the center of a holographic projection that was simultaneously a historical record, a technological marvel, and a fundamental restructuring of human understanding. "We were never the new species," Michael whispered, his voice carrying the weight of millennia. "We were always the plan." A holographic display began to unfold, a story that would reshape everything known about human origins. Millions of years ago, a civilization had reached a technological singularity so profound that they understood their own potential extinction. But unlike other species that fought to the last, they chose a different path: strategic hibernation. Genetic memories began to cascade through the research team's consciousness. They weren't just viewing history, they were experiencing it with a fidelity that blurred the line between memory and lived experience. The original civilization had been architects of potential. They understood that survival was not about immediate triumph, but about long-term adaptation. Their warships were not just technological marvels. They were living time capsules, genetic archives that could reshape themselves across generations. Dr. Sofia Vasquez, her neural interface crackling with quantum energy, began to piece together the profound truth. They didn't just preserve technology, she realized. They preserved potential. The archaeological evidence was irrefutable. Genetic markers found in human DNA were not random mutations, but carefully engineered pathways. Every significant human technological breakthrough, from the first stone tools to quantum computing, had been a carefully placed stepping stone in a plan spanning millennia. Michael's hand touched a quantum data crystal, and suddenly the room erupted with living memories. Civilizations rising and falling. Technological marvels that made current human understanding look like primitive sketches. A strategic plan so complex that it made multi-dimensional chess look like a child's game. "We were their continuation," Michael explained to the stunned research team. "Not descendants. Continuation." The warships were more than technological vessels. They were living memory cores, each one a complete genetic and technological archive of a civilization that had chosen patience over immediate survival. They had encoded their entire existence into a plan so intricate that it would take generations to fully understand. Genetic memories revealed the ultimate truth. This civilization had faced a threat so profound that traditional survival was impossible. Instead of fighting, they chose to hibernate, to wait, to prepare. Humanity was not an accident. Humanity was a carefully engineered solution. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, connecting remotely from the quantum interface chamber, understood the deeper implication. We weren't just preserved, she communicated through the quantum network. We were cultivated. The archaeological evidence suggested a civilization that had reached technological capabilities so advanced that they could manipulate genetic potential across millennia. They didn't just preserve their technology, they'd preserved their potential for adaptation. Every major human breakthrough, fire, agriculture, writing, computing, was revealed to be a carefully placed milestone in a multi-generational plan. The Zorn invasion was not an unexpected conflict. It was the precise moment this civilization had anticipated and prepared for. "We are not their children," Michael said, his voice resonating with a profound understanding. "We are their living strategy." The quantum archives continued to unfold, a testament to a civilization that had understood the most fundamental truth of existence. Survival is not about immediate triumph, but about the capacity to adapt, to understand, to evolve. Humanity was about to show the galaxy exactly what that meant. The Galactic Concordance Assembly convened in a quantum-constructed meeting space that existed simultaneously across multiple star systems. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center, not as a conqueror, but as an architect of a fundamentally new approach to interstellar civilization. "We are not here to replace," she began, her voice resonating through quantum communication networks that made traditional communication look primitive. "We are here to transform." The representatives of over 200 alien civilizations listened, some in terror, some in fascination, all in complete silence. The warships that had decimated the Zorn Collective now orbited the meeting space, not as weapons, but as living monuments to a different kind of potential. Humanity's approach was neither diplomatic nor military. It was evolutionary. The technological exchanges began not with weapons or resources, but with knowledge. Quantum memory projections allowed civilizations to directly experience each other's most profound historical moments. Where previous galactic interactions had been limited by language, translation, and cultural barriers, humanity introduced a method of communication that transcended these limitations. Dr. Michael Chen unveiled the first phase of the Galactic Potential Protocol. It was more than a treaty. It was a fundamental reimagining of interstellar interaction. Each civilization would contribute its unique evolutionary adaptations, its deepest technological insights, creating a collective repository of potential that went beyond any single species' capabilities. The Crystalline Concordance, once the most militaristic of galactic powers, found themselves transformed. Their crystalline neural networks were gradually integrated into a larger quantum communication framework that allowed for unprecedented levels of mutual understanding. Ambassador Zerelin, representing the Concordance, spoke for the first time without the traditional defensive posturing. "We are learning," she communicated, her crystalline form resonating with a vulnerability never before seen in galactic diplomacy. Not just surviving, but understanding. The warships that had been instruments of destruction became schools of evolutionary potential. Each vessel was opened, not as a display of might, but as a living educational resource. Alien scientists could directly interface with technologies that challenged every previous understanding of physics, consciousness, and potential. Elena understood the deeper strategy. This was not about creating a human-dominated galaxy. This was about creating a collaborative ecosystem of potential. Technological exchanges happened at a quantum level. A species that had developed remarkable atmospheric adaptation technologies would find their insights merging with another civilization's quantum communication capabilities. The result was not a merger, but a collaborative explosion of potential. The Andromedan Consensus, which had initially prepared defensive positions, now found themselves contributing their complex neural network technologies to a galactic knowledge pool that was growing exponentially. "We are not building an empire," Michael Chen explained during a comprehensive data transfer. "We are cultivating a living, evolving network of potential." Planetary defense systems were gradually transformed into collaborative research platforms. Weapons research was redirected into evolutionary potential studies. Every civilization began to understand that their unique adaptations were not competitive advantages, but collaborative resources. The quantum memory projections continued, not as weapons, but as a form of radical empathy. Civilizations could directly experience each other's most profound moments of triumph and struggle, creating a level of mutual understanding that went beyond traditional diplomatic interactions. Elena Rodriguez looked out at the assembled representatives, understanding that this was more than a diplomatic meeting. This was the beginning of a fundamentally new approach to existence. "We are not here to lead," she concluded, her final communication resonating through the quantum networks. "We are here to show what's possible when potential is truly understood." The infinite darkness of space seemed to pause, listening. Humanity had arrived, and everything was about to change.